A letter to Saint Vivix Kepesk from Beeman, Fleeman, Gleeman, Vreeman, and Weeman Argle-Bargle. Dear Saint Vivix Kepesk, for this Need Fest, we have noticed many people in our neighborhood who could use your help and generosity. Mrs. and Mr. Gulforg down the hall just had little Petchel, and we think he could do with new socks and a new cap, so that he doesn't have to have hand-me-downs from his 8 brothers. Mom and Dad say that the Gulforgs could use a night's rest, too, so maybe you could send them a babysitter. Gleeman heard Miss Frugfessa say that her advisor at the Grey College has as much spine as a flumph. We don't know his name, but please bring him a back brace like Cousin Nermox wears, so that he can stand better and not slump over at the dinner table. Mrs. Fulcrum still can't see, so please bring her softer furniture so she doesn't get hurt from bumping into things. And Mom needs help with the washing and the after-supper dishes. You don't have to worry about those 2 things, though. We will take turns this year, so you can have one less person on your list that needs your help. We even made a chart. Finally, if everyone in Borough Heights has everything that they need this year, we would each dearly appreciate the following. For Beeman, a beginner's alchemy set. For Fleeman, a Knights and Rogues set so he won't have to keep borrowing Mr. Sen's. For Gleeman, a 5-minute timer glass to go with Fleeman's new Knights and Rogues set so that Fleeman will keep the rules for once. For Vreeman, some sweets. Any sort, really. And for Weeman, a stuffed owlie bear. Respectfully, Beeman, Fleeman, Gleeman, Vreeman, and Weeman Argle-Bargle.
In the city of Greyhawk, 5 individuals are united by circumstance. A brewer priest, a haunted swordsman, a living relic, a caustic criminal, and a golem without a past. With the drawing of a single card, their lives have been turned upside down. Welcome to The Chimera, a role-playing adventure podcast. Our campaign this season is called Misplaced. It takes place in the venerable setting of Greyhawk, kind of, and we're playing with a modified version of 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons. I'm Vin LeBate, and I play Golden-Eyed Rikashi, a Dragonborn rogue. Joining me today are...
I'm Josh Halbachner, and I play Ashlar, a Warforged sorcerer.
I'm Kacey Smith, and I play Latchkey, a Shardmind with the dual classes of Battlemind and Scion.
And I'm Kelly Weissman Aspruth Jackson, the Dungeon Master.
Now, let's get started.
Good evening, everybody. I'm glad that you could, those of us who could join in for this special holiday-themed flashback episode of Misplaced. Please forgive me if I'm describing you in a way you feel is inaccurate, but based on what I know about the people around the table tonight, we have 4 people with at least a total of 5 religious identities between them, 2 Jews, 1 lapsed Catholic, 1 funny Muslim, and Unitarian Universalist. So let's have a Christmas episode, right? That seems like a good thing to do.
Yay!
I think that math checks out.
I mean, lapsed Catholic might even be a stretch, but sure, close enough.
Yeah, I mean, there's also an atheist in there, but
right.
Also
I mean, that's not counting the theological orientation.
Right. Correct.
There's at least 1 atheist. I think a couple actually.
Yeah.
So my point is, isn't this fun that we're gonna have a Christmas theme episode? So the inspiration for the structure of this episode is Love Actually, or the equivalent ensemble piece light holiday fair movie, right?
Right.
So each of the characters is going to have something for them to do. The idea is we're going to present opportunities to interact, and we're going to move about the city of Greyhawk and hopefully see some various scenes in the time of Greyhawk's holiday season. So basically, your individual character is going to have some goal or interest to pursue. We're going to work by having each scene needs to have obviously at least 1 player character in it, but we can't go more than 2 scenes without having at least 2 player characters on screen. So basically, if you have a scene by yourself, the next thing that happens, wherever you go, somebody else has to show up, even if it doesn't make any sense offhand. And then the person who shows up is responsible for explaining why are they there.
Right.
Now, I don't mean like explaining in character. I mean like you have to be able to justify narratively, why is my character in this weird place?
Right.
And then maybe they'll interact, maybe they won't. Maybe sometimes they'll run into each other and say hi, or, work together or do something. Maybe sometimes, you'll be over in one corner of the bar and someone else will walk in on the other side of the bar. You won't even see each other, but the camera will pan from, one to the other. There has to be opportunities to swap off plot lines. Then we'll follow their plot line for a scene, and then they'll go and hand it off to somebody else. So in the meantime, once you disappear and then reappear again, there's potential to say like stuff happened in between. When you come back, when you sort of rejoin the focus, you can say like, oh yeah, we did this other thing off screen that happened, right? You have some freedom then to explain, like, is part of your explanation for how did you end up back on screen? Like, oh well, we did this other thing and now we're here. Those are all the rules I wanted to set down. I think they are. This is going to be set the last. So the winter holidays in Greyhawk, as we'll discuss in a moment, happen essentially at the beginning of the new year. So this is the last new year before the doomed voyage of the Brazen Ox. So relatively recently. And yeah, I think those are the things. I asked folks beforehand if there were specific locations in Greyhawk you wanted to see. And we had one vote for the docks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one vote for some sort of house of ill repute. And Josh, did you have something you wanted to contribute?
I didn't come up with something in particular.
No problem. If you come up with something in the course of play, I can add it to the list. We'll see. What I have is a chart I'm going to be rolling on, so we'll sort of see what we end up with. Okay, so allow me to set the scene here. This is a world where the gods are real. It's important to remember that. Because the gods are real, they have ordained the functioning of the planet of Orth and the system of celestial bodies of which it is a part. They've ordained it in a particular way. And that structure lends itself to a natural rhythm of the year, such that even very different cultures often use a calendaring system that's at least somewhat the same. So Greyhawk Earth has 2 moons. Luna, which is the larger of the 2, and Selene, which is the smaller. Luna is white, Selene is bluish. But although it's understood that they are pretty different in size, their relative distance makes them very similar in terms of size as they appear in the night sky. Mm. Luna has a 28-day cycle, just like the conventional Earth moon. Selene has a 91-day cycle. And the orbit of the sun around Orth, because Orth is a Orth-centric system, the sun does actually orbit the planet. The orbit of the sun around Orth, so the duration of a solar year, is exactly 364 days. So what that works out to is that it's exactly 13 cycles of Luna and exactly 4 cycles of Selene. So all that adds up and works out, right? And so the result is that even very disparate cultures, most of them use a calendar that has some version of either 13 months or, as we'll see in a moment, 12 months with 4 weird weeks. And then that's broken up by these 91-day cycles, which account for the 4 weird weeks. So in the city of Greyhawk and in the following of Rao, which is the dominant religion in the Flaneus, the calendar starts with Needfest, which is a 7-day-long festival. And then it has 3 months, and then it has another 7-day festival, and then another 3 months, another 7-day festival, another 3 months, another 7-day festival. So it basically, it works out so that accounts for the 13 cycles of Luna. And Selene is always full on the 4th night of each of those festivals. So that's sort of how you keep track of it. Like, Selene's about to be full again. That means it's time to have a festival. It's a fairly complicated explanation, I understand, but this is the reason why, in the setting, a whole bunch of different religious and cultural groups are all having parties at the same time. Essentially because the gods structured the universe in a way that encourages some kind of religious observance every 91 days. So, in the city of Greyhawk, at this time, Needfest is the term that is used for the festival in the following of Rao. Needfest celebrates the hatching of Rao from the illustrious egg, an dragon egg which was taken from somewhere in the ruins of old Arcosia, brought to the Moongrave, which is, so basically was taken from the far east of the Flinnaeus to the far west of the Flinnaeus, where it hatched, and instead of hatching a baby dragon, it hatched a fully grown dragonborn, this being Rao. So it celebrates Rao's hatching, but also it's a time of some gift giving, but especially sort of the doing of good works. It's traditional at this time to give gifts to friends and family, but also to provide things to those in the community that are in need. In fact, the traditional, so one of the symbols of the holiday is Saint Vivix Kepesk, who was a brass dragon. He was the first proper dragon to embrace Rao as a follower, to acknowledge the divinity of Rao and that Rao was an incarnation of Bahamut, the god Bahamut. So he's sort of a big deal. So Vivix Kepesk, the tradition says, visits the world every Need Fest and goes from house to house doing good deeds and especially helping the poor and those in need. He often uses his fire breath in order to rekindle the fires in their hearts if they've gone out during the night. He uses his sleeping breath in order to help colicky infants to rest easy throughout the night hours. And he brings often gifts and toys to young children. That's the tradition. So there's a tradition of having adults dress up as St. Viv's Kepex, so get into often a 2 or 3 person brass dragon costume, and then children will come and sit on their laps and read to them the list that they've made of people in their neighborhoods and people in their lives who might need things, be short of something this year. And then at the end of it, they're also allowed to say, if you have time, St. Viv's Kepesk, I could also use, and then give the toys that they want for the holiday. So that's the primary way in which Needfest is observed. It's largely a winter gift-giving holiday. And as I said, there are several other holidays in the various other traditions that are observed by people in the city, and we will encounter those throughout the evening. But because this is a gift-giving holiday, and because the majority of people in Greyhawk are at least casual Rowists, it's a real busy time in the shops. So we begin all together in Ashalar's curiosity shop, where he is so busy this time of year that he's had to ask a couple of people that he knows for help. So Ashalar is there, of course, but also Latchkey, helping out with the various customers, and also Rikashi. And Latchkey and Rikashi, it is up to you to figure out what has Ash promised you in order to get you to help out with this. So Josh, why don't you describe to me what a busy night in Ashalar's shop looks like?
Can I ask a quick... sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, totally.
This is a tangential question to a piece of the mythos of Rao. So he came out of the egg as a fully grown Dragonborn. Do most Dragonborn hatch fully grown? Is that a Dragonborn thing, or is that a Rao thing? So
in my version, right, and this is not canon. This is really me spinning something out here, because I think that if everybody's live birth, it's boring. That's my answer. And it's also sort of based on the draconian idea, which comes from the Dragonlance series. So in this setting, the way Dragonborn exist is that they're essentially born from unfertilized dragon eggs. So dragons just lay a certain number of eggs on a relatively reliable schedule, and if they're not fertilized, they're not doing what one would do in order to fertilize an egg, they end up hatching, instead of hatching one small dragon, they hatch a bunch of young, not quite infant, but like young dragonborn, like child-sized dragonborn.
Got it.
And then so some dragons will kind of will instead like have some eggs, raise those dragonborn up, and essentially have this servitor group that, does their bidding and guards their lair and that sort of stuff. But there are also communities of dragonborn that aren't attached to any particular dragon, and they actually, one of the things because they want more of themselves, they want to continue their community, they will pay adventurers to capture dragon eggs and bring them to them so that they can raise the young. It's part of the reason why slaying dragons is so profitable, because the dragonborn in your area will pay you for the eggs you bring back.
On that note, Rikashi, because of the way in which she was raised, does not know when or where she was hatched. And so she has developed a tradition of just considering this to be her birthday. It's fucking egg day, assholes.
Very good. Very good.
Now I'm working on fucking egg day. Great.
Okay, so, my basic thought here is, I have kind of a weird sundry shop. So it's not the kind of thing that tends to do a lot of, super, like, normal off-the-street business. But, basically, I think when it's busy here, it tends to be a still not super high volume, but of, like, extremely high demand customers. So I'm guessing, given the size of the shop, that probably it's like, maybe 9 or 10 people at most, but each of them is individually like trying to get my attention to ask extremely stupid questions about a different thing that they have found on the shelf somewhere. So I imagine the way that I'm actually doing this is talking to one, maybe the like most insistent person, in kind of as smooth and apologetic a voice as I can, and trying to answer their questions neutrally, while actually using my hand to kind of write notes on a pad of paper about things that I see other people looking at, as I kind of scan around a little bit. Like just kind of writing out different notes, tearing them off and sticking them down on the table so that when one of those people comes over, I can pick up the note and hand it to them, explaining what the thing they're looking at is. So I think that probably lets me cover about, I don't know, like 6 or 7 of the people in the store.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And Latchkey, can we get a little shot of you trying to help a customer?
Yeah, Latchkey is blue today. They actually turned blue specifically to help Ashlar out, because Blue is sort of the historian, just knows kind of random shit. So they happen to, like, things that they don't know about the items, they can infer or just make things up really well, which, like, seems to also be okay with Ashlar. So Latchkey is sort of standing, I guess, next to Ashlar behind the counter, because there's not a lot of room in front of the counter because it's sort of crowded with these people poking around at things. And they're talking to a dwarf who is asking about this item that kind of looks like, it's like this little bangly, sparkly thing, but it like goes on the handle of an axe. And so, he's trying to decide if that's something that like the woman he's trying to impress would like, and is also trying to make sure that it's not cursed, because I guess that's happened once to him, and it didn't go very well. So they're kind of hashing out like the history of this thing. And as far as Latchkey is aware or is letting on, it doesn't really have any particular like magical or power value to it. It's just kind of pretty and interesting, and looks very nice on the handle of an axe. So that's what they're doing.
Cool. So yeah, the dwarf is definitely interested in this axe charm, but does have a lot of questions, concerns. He's clearly very, very focused on this person that he's trying to impress, this woman that he's trying to impress. He's very like, oh, it's really good, it's really, really pretty cool, but I don't know. She's got a lot of she's got really, really good taste. I don't want to seem like I'm cheaping out here. It's very, I gotta make a good impression, He's mostly talking to himself at this point. Very much up in his head about the prospect of this purchase. Let's cut over quickly to Rikashi. What does Rikashi look like helping out in Ash's shop?
Yeah, so Rikashi is definitely not wearing her own face, although she is doing something she doesn't do that often these days, which is she's wearing her go-to human face, which is a woman same height, same build, very unparsable mixed race. You might think one thing and then look for a long second and think something else, and then keep going back and forth. And a lot of people guess, and she takes that opportunity to make them feel like shit. Mm-hmm. She has short, spiky chestnut hair, and she is probably manning the cash box. Mm-hmm. Because Ash knows that, if you're going to have a thief in your store, then, put them in a place where they can spot the other thieves. So she's there. Also, she's essentially shooting down anyone who tries to haggle.
Yeah. I bet she is.
So she's probably up there right now, no-sailing someone.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there's a very, very stern woman with severe features and dark hair pulled back very tight on her head, trying to get a deal on a rug from Zeif, and saying, "Oh, there's a thread amiss here. You can see that, can't you? Clearly, you can't expect me to pay 12 gold for this."
That's a craftsman's signature. That should double the price of this thing. You are lucky to be getting it this cheap. Do you not know how these things are made? Have you not looked into the industry?
She seems a little caught off guard by that. Definitely doesn't know much about industry at all. Thinks for a moment and says, "I am informed about a great many matters, and I am prepared to meet your price."
Good. She holds out a hand.
Well, while this is going on, I think Ash is currently pinned in one of the corners. There's a kind of middle-aged looking elven woman, so I assume that's super old if she's old enough to look
look middle-aged.
And she is kind of pointing, stabbing her finger down to punctuate her statements at a book which still has a price label on the spine indicating that it was purchased at the shop just a few weeks ago. And what she has is a page with a giant list of different pole arms with different kind of fanciful, drawings of each. And Ash is just kind of trying to explain to her, "No, yes, I know. I do sometimes stock certain weapons when they come through, but I don't keep a standardized inventory. No, a glaive gizarm is not even a thing. Yes! This is not, this... I know that you purchased this manual. Many of these things are very fanciful in certain ways. They include things that are not used in true martial practice. I'm afraid I cannot help you out here." And he's just trying to explain this to her.
It's staggering to me how much we went to the same place for the joke, Josh. That's pretty amazing that you also were like, okay, this setup can only be punctuated with a glaive gizarm joke. There's no
the second that you
way
were like,
around
"Oh,
it.
there's annoying customers in the shop," I knew where I had to go.
So, Rikashi has just made that sale. Mm-hmm. When someone comes through the door looking nervous and bedraggled, a short, spindly gnome, mostly bald, white hair where there is hair on the head, has tattoo all over his face. It's writing in common that says, "I am a terrible accountant. Do not give me a job."
Ouch.
He rushes up to Rikashi, and the thing about this fellow is that Rikashi knows him somewhat well. They used to be co-workers. This is Warren Arglebargle, Orgnention's former accountant.
Oh, shit.
He says, is this Rikashi's go-to human form is female, yes?
Yeah, he recognizes this.
Oh, okay. So he would recognize the face because you said it's a face that Rikashi used a lot.
Yeah.
He goes up to her and sort of leans in and says, Rikashi. I'm sorry. Rikashi! Can we please speak outside?
Oh, for fuck's sake. Ash, I'm taking a 5.
No, that's a Vouge. Okay, Rikashi, don't take too long.
I told him not to use that name, but he keeps using that name when I'm here. Come on, there's an alley back
he
here.
gets up to Rikashi and says that. And as he's saying that, the tattoos on his face, which are just, I mean, they look like conventional tattoos. They're black. They're not, there's nothing other than the fact that they're huge honkin' face tattoos. There's nothing totally...
And are new, I presume.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
But while talking to Rikashi, like just as he gets the words out, they start to glow pink, and he winces visibly, like he can feel the change, and it is not a fun feeling. Way over, Rikashi's turning, you're headed out to the alley, but just to note that the camera catches over on the other side of the shop where Latchkey is, the pink crystal glows for a moment and then fades away as you go outside to talk.
Latchkey sort of pauses in their discussion with the dwarf and looks very briefly distracted for a moment, but not quite sure why. Like, did they hear a door close? And then kind of the moment passes and they go back to talking to the dwarf.
So out in the alleyway with Warren Arglebargle. In fact, I want to underline these tattoos are not new to Rikashi. She saw Warren once, right after Org had put them on his face. She was in charge of making sure that he got out to the street and didn't come back. Rikashi, I need your help.
Yeah?
Yeah. So, well, it's Need Fest, right? And I'm pretty short on funds, but I have a way to make some money, and I'm willing to cut you in on it if you'll help me out.
What makes you think I need money?
Well, I mean, none of us who, from the old days, we're not doing too well. There's not a lot of work left in the city.
What makes you think that I want to deal with anyone from the old organization at this point?
Look, I know you're trying to keep your nose clean or whatever, and I respect that. I'm trying to do the same thing since I got out of the Gale, We're both trying to live clean. I gotta do right by Roswin and the kids. That's why I need to make a little money. Maybe you have needs too, maybe you don't. That's fine. I'm just asking you to help a brother out, just for old time's sake. It's Need Fest.
Okay, live clean is probably a stretch. That's fair. But your wife sent us cookies that one time. She was pretty cool.
She's an angel.
So as willing as I would be to leave your carcass in an alley somewhere, I'll do one for her. Why not? It's fucking Egg Day.
Thank you. So he gets down on his knees. He's like shaking his hands like he's holding on to one of her hands. Like, really, this is a man clearly at his last wit, and he is reaching out for help and grateful.
Rikashi is like permanently, and I wasn't even supposed to be here today status.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Rikashi's entire phase of life is, I wasn't even supposed to be here today. So he's got a whole thing that he needs your help with. Are you going to go back in and tell Ashlar you're bunking off, or?
Yeah, I'll pop back in.
Okay. So when you come back in, Ash, a couple other customers have come in the time that you were gone, and anybody that you were dealing with is now also mobbing him. So he's now in a spot where he has 4 different notes in one hand that all just like have things like the magical properties of different crystals and like, the library ordering of different books and how to find those in like the bookshelf section. And, one of them is a return slip that somebody can fill out and sign for the thing that they bought yesterday that they don't want anymore. And, meanwhile, he's standing by the cash box, not actually cashing anybody out, but just, standing by it so that nobody, makes a run for it or anything. And meanwhile, he has finally produced a set of 2 pole arms, each of them with gemstones kind of set into them, but otherwise kind of mundane, not really something super interesting, which he has, hold on one second, which he has basically lashed together with magical tape so that, if you hold the handle, there's a top end, which has 2 distinct pole arm points kind of going in different directions. There's no way in which this would ever be useful, but he's kind of holding this as the elvish woman kind of inspects it and decides whether in fact she is interested in purchasing it. So as soon as you come in, Ash looks up and he goes, "You're back."
Yeah, I got a split.
Ash makes the fire size so big that actual flames ripple off of his shoulders, and people jump back a foot.
Don't give me that. You knew that I was here temporarily, right up until something more interesting happened. Or in this case, more annoying. How did that happen? How did I get roped into that? Whatever. I have to go save Needfest for some poor bedraggled family, I guess.
Ash is going to look over at Latchkey at this point and see what their kind of reaction is.
So Latchkey kind of glances over at Save Needfest for some poor bedraggled family, I guess. And their head kind of cocks this does not compute with anything they know about Rikashi up to this point, or any of the dreams that they've really shared of the, this is Rikashi came in and was I've decided I want to be a human from now on. Nonsensical. And they just kind of look back at Ashlar and then back at Rikashi. Are you very ill?
I'm asking myself that, but I don't think so. I think
Ash kind of turns away from the elvish woman who he's extremely done with at this point if she's not going to buy his stupid taped up pole arm. And he goes, "I have heard tell of a sorcery which can only be completed on..." I'm sorry, you need to give me the name of the holiday again.
Needfest.
On Need?
Yes.
Okay. So, okay.
Festival of Needs.
Yeah. Sorcery that can only be completed on Needfest, which does cause someone to almost completely reverse their own social standing and expectations. So perhaps our friend here is simply under such a manner of enchantment.
Yeah, I got fucking holiday geezed. It sucks. Anyway.
Holiday geezed is the best.
Oh, see y'all when I see y'all.
All right. I want, for the record, to note, the color of what the holiday is all me. The name is completely canonical. Needfest is a canonical name. It's on the calendar. I just had to come up with a reason for why it would be called Needfest.
Needfest 2019.
Yeah, I was going to say, Needfest sounds like a thing where a rapper tricks rich guys to go to an island and then abandons them.
All right. So, Rikashi has departed to save Christmas, and Latchkey, you appear to have made the sale. The dwarf you were talking to is into it. He's going to go for this axe charm. It feels like it's delicate yet functional. It's very beautiful. It's got a good story to it. He's feeling it. He's feeling good about it. And so he turns to go talk to Ashlar about actually buying it, because especially now that the cash box is, the person who's sending the cash box isn't there anymore. He has to go talk to Ashlar. So he's about to do that when a tall, broad female minotaur walks through the shop, and Latchkey immediately recognizes her as Wenja Zabas. But with her...
Cow in the magic shop.
Two, actually, because with her is a young minotaur. It's sort of hard to gauge the age of minotaur children, probably especially for Latchkey. I despair of their ability to necessarily be confident about the age of this child, but definitely not an adult, because well below adult minotaur height, but roughly as tall and almost as broad as the average dwarf is. Male minotaur, get the horns are not fully in yet, but they're coming in. Looks kind of bothered to be there, but being ushered along by Wenja, and Wenja holds up a hand to Latchkey and sort of indicates that she would like to talk.
So since the sale has been closed, and of course there's probably a bunch of other people they could talk to, but they kind of come around the counter to see what Wenja needs, because technically a customer, it's legit. And they say, a fine need fest to you. How fare you, Wenja?
Fairly well, Latchkey. Fairly well. But I'm afraid that I find myself with a bit of a problem tonight. I promised my sister, I'm not really sure why. She sort of covers the younger Minotaur's ears as she says this. Not really sure why, but anyways, that I would look after her son, my nephew, for a few days, and I find myself with an immediate need to fulfill a contract. I thought that we were going to have a few more days before it was going to need to be done, but the customer is very determined that the heads need to roll tonight. So my boys and I, we need to go outside the city for a little bit. I can't take Bjorkus with me. Remember how you owe me that favor? Let's flash back.
Double minute flashback.
You tell me
geez.
Why Latchkey might owe Wenja a favor.
So, this is a scene taking place a few miles outside of Greyhawk, and Latchkey is red and standing very triumphantly with their blade drawn over a dead orc. And Wenja is absolutely going off at them because this was not the target. This was, someone unrelated that, not only that, but they let the target get away. And it was basically just complete incorrect lineup. And, Latchkey was feeling very proud of themselves and victorious in battle and whatnot. So Wenja kind of pulls some strings and sort of basically smooths the whole thing over with the client, but with the understanding that Latchkey kind of owes them now because they fucked up a job. Probably their first one for Wenja, actually. So flashback to now, and Latchkey looks very briefly uncomfortable because they don't really like to remember making mistakes, especially mistakes that they weren't, like Blue didn't do it. But they say, yes, we are aware that we are in your debt. This is how you're calling it in, then?
It is. And after this, we'll be square.
Latchkey looks down at the smaller Minotaur, sort of like one looks at like an object they don't really know how to put back together after they've taken it apart, and says, very well. Bjorkus, do you have any interest in the sale of strange antiquities?
What are antiquities?
They're all of these things you see about you, as we understand it.
Got any swords?
Oh, most certainly.
All right. For the moment, at least, that is going to be of interest to Bjorkus. Meanwhile, the dwarf that was talking to Kacey is not just any dwarf, as Ashlar realizes once he has enough time and attention to notice who it is. It's actually Sen, his acquaintance and also tattoo artist. So Sen has just walked up to Ashlar, holding that axe charm that he seems very taken with, having decided this is it. This is the gift. This is the thing that's going to do it. we established that Sen is Ashlar's contact, Josh, but not really what their relationship is like?
Probably fairly positive. I mean, Ash has been back to him multiple times, but I don't think like I think it's a pretty specific relationship, right? Like he's, in Ash's mind, he's kind of a friendly, trusted vendor that he has made use of on a number of cases, and he's happy to refer people to, but they probably don't like socialize.
Cool, makes sense. He greets Ash in a much more warm and effusive way than Ash would expect, both based on their previous interactions and based on just the relationship itself, right? You described the relationship. It's like professionals who respect each other and, like have maybe a friendly customer-vendor relationship, right? And here he's greeting you like an old friend, say. Oh, Ashlar, it is so good to see you. I found this wonderful axe charm here in your shop. I can't wait to give it to this girl, Ashlar. She's amazing. She's incredible.
This is a spot where Ash's lack of human like facial tics is probably to his direct benefit.
So he's both trying to actually buy. He does actually want to buy the thing. So hopefully you're going to handle that transaction for him. But just while that's going on, while he's, counting out the coins or whatever for you, he says, Ashlar, tonight is the third night of Aelin Splendor.
I need to know, while this is going on, where has the polearm woman landed on her buying decision?
She is, she took the polearm. She's looked at the polearm. She finicked with the tape a little bit. I mean, she's not blind, right? So she, but she's also like doing some carefully doing some test jabs a little bit with it. And now, because Sen is taking longer with this transaction than is necessary by a wide margin, right? He's talkative and clearly he's trying to get at something with Ashlar he hasn't quite gotten to the point of yet. And now she's looking impatient because now she wants to buy the thing. And suddenly there's a line in front of her.
So Ash is going to hold up one finger and just say, "Excuse me, I have to help this this lovely lady with her purchase. Just 1 second."
He steps back and he waits. He's clearly has a priority to do some more chatting with Ashlar, and so he waits for the elven woman to buy her jury-rigged polearm.
I charged about a 47% markup for magical attachment services here. So if she wants it, it's hers.
She pays your price.
Sweet. Once she's happily heading out, I'm happy to return to the previous conversation.
All right. So as Sen was saying, Aelin Splendor, the Festival of Burning Steel. You never heard of it?
Do I know about that?
I mean, how informed do you think Ashlar is on somewhat obscure religious practices of peoples of the Flinnaeus?
How many?
It's a dwarven holiday.
How many accoutrements does it involve?
Not really any that would pass through his shop.
Then I do not know what it is.
Okay.
I'm afraid I'm not familiar with it.
Oh, it's a wonderful time of the year. Long ago, he starts to break into this explanation, long ago when we were enslaved to the giants. He makes a face scowling.
It seems like he's going to take a while, so as much as he can without making an active scene of it, he's going to try to get Latchkey's attention and gesture them over to some customers who maybe aren't being served as well at the moment to make sure that everybody's kind of still got some attention.
Very good. He does launch into this long explanation, but I think this is a good opportunity for us to cut back to Latchkey for a second. So Latchkey, you're trying to juggle a couple of different things at once now, right? Because now you've got this ambiguously aged, immature Minotaur that you're responsible for, and also trying to help customers at the same time.
Right.
Oh yeah, and Ash has completely missed that they're responsible for this Minotaur right now.
So, like, they've kind of given Bjorkus a dagger to check out because it's a smaller weapon, so maybe he won't, like, kill himself with it. Probably it should be fine. And then, they're talking to, one customer and trying to sort of take out a thing for another customer to inspect, because now that Rikashi is gone, like, everyone that she was dealing with has sort of gone to talk to Ash, but now that Ash is, like, talking to this dwarf, they're all kind of drifting over to the person that looks less in the middle of a conversation. So they're just kind of, they don't have the whole like watch and write down system. They're basically just sort of like jumping from person to person and making a little bit of a mess of it, but doing their best.
So you've given Bjorkus a dagger to inspect, and jumping from customer to customer, trying to follow Ashlar's sort of gestured instructions to get to somebody else. When you hear the bell on the door of the shop ring and just look up and realize that Bjorkus has just walked out the door.
A moment, they say to the customer they were talking to, and then they run out the door.
Okay, so in chasing after Bjorkus, you got into the street now. Ashlar's shop sits on the processional, which is the main avenue that goes the full length of the city of Greyhawk, from the northern gate to the southern gate. And it is the site of a lot of different processions for religious and cultural and a bunch of other different purposes in the course of the year. And the one that is going on tonight is for the festival of Moon's Wake. Moon's Wake is the midwinter festival in the Faith of Five Wheels, sometimes called the Old Faith, the sort of earth and forest-centric religious system in the Fleneus, especially popular in the Sheldamar Valley, which is the region that's to the west of where Greyhawk is situated. But there are a lot of people in Greyhawk that follow it. And there are a lot more people who participate in it, because its festivals have a lot of revelry involved in them, and you don't need to necessarily be a dyed-in-the-wool believer in order to get to participate. So Moon's Wake is mostly focused on the Raven Queen, who is the goddess of death. She's also nominally the goddess of winter, but she doesn't really pay a lot of attention to that area of her portfolio. She mostly outsources that to one of her exarchs, one of the divine beings that's sort of subsidiary to her, named Telcher. So the Raven Queen looks like this beautiful kind of possibly fey woman with somewhat fey features, chalk white skin, who wears a robe of black feathers and a cowl that has like a raven face to it. But Telcher is like this old man with a long beard made totally out of ice.
Ooh.
So on the Festival of Moon's Wake, there are every night of the festival, there are these big parades of people in a variety of costumes. Some of them are dressed like ravens, some of them are dressed like ice monsters, and some of them are dressed like sort of the honored dead, various usually historical figures that have died, often long ago. The people are sort of dressed up in costumes. So there's this whole long parade of people. It started from the temple of Sehanin, which is down south of where you are now, and was winding up towards the Low Market, which is north of where you are now, up processional. And so there's this whole long parade of people just sort of dancing and chanting and singing in crazy costumes. And that is what Bjorkus has been drawn out by, and is like, he's dancing and singing along with them. He's like, oh, this seems pretty cool. And he's headed up towards the Low Market with the flow of the crowd. Okay,
so Latchkey tries to kind of, nudge around people and push past people and get caught up to him so she can attempt to convince him to come back to the boring shop where people are shouting instead of hanging out in the big party where everyone's dressed like crazy ice monsters and dead people. So I think they're still at the point where they're just trying to reach him, and it's one of those, like, he's getting progressively further away as, like, various people kind of, like, pop up in their face and, dance or backflip or whatever the hell they're doing. And, it just becomes increasingly less likely that they're actually going to reach this kid before the whole thing moves into the Low Market. And so they end up kind of flowing along with it. Occasionally shouting Bjorkus in a that's not loud enough to carry over the hubbub.
Okay, very good. So this is the like scene of losing or almost losing, and then sort of trying to regain in the crowd. Bjorkus is very focused on the party and not very focused on whether or not his current babysitter has eyes on him or not. So you're flowing up towards the low market. Eventually, with enough jostling forward and doing their best to catch up to him, Latchkey is able to get to Bjorkus once the low market has been reached. Once the sort of parade has reached its destination, it's easier to move through the crowd because people are starting to form a circle around the big central bonfire. It's traditional light bonfires on Moon's Wake. It's traditional light bonfires on a bunch of the different festivals that happen at this time of year. So there's sort of one common bonfire in the middle of the low market, in the middle of the middle section of the city. So it's sort of like, this is the bonfire for Moon's Wake, and this is the bonfire for Narvasurda, and this is the bonfire for a bunch of different reasons. It's like the communal bonfire for tonight. And so people have sort of circled around there, and they're putting on a Moon's Wake pageant tonight. It's different subject every night. They do a different sort of drama with some of the people who are in costume acting out a story. And tonight, the story is about the Raven Queen's blessed usurpation of Nerol, how she slew the god of death and replaced him as the new god of death. And it's there's all this melodrama and much reaction from the crowds. And so that's what's happening around the bonfire as Latchkey catches up to Bjorkus.
So they kind of drop in next to Bjorkus and are luckily not out of breath because they don't breathe, but if they were a person, they probably would be. And they kind of like pluck a little piece of like, I don't know, glitter, some like little strandy celebratory thing that get tossed in the air kind of off of their shoulder. And
a feather.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, totally a feather. In fact, they probably have a boa, like a feather boa that's like wrapped around their neck now.
Yes,
that
definitely.
They're just
black feather boa, but
black
yes.
feather boa that they're just leaving on. Because it's easier. People keep, every time they took one off, someone would put another one on, and so they've just given up. So they fall in next to Bjorkus, and they're kind of watching this play, and they say, it's always seemed odd to me, the idea of killing death. Does that not seem counterintuitive?
Bjorkus has acquired from somewhere a ice monster mask. That's worn, it doesn't fit his face very well, but he has it over his face, and so when he turns and apparently looks up with Latchkey, although you can't see his eyes through the mask, he puts the mask up onto his head, sort of nestled with his horns, and says, it just means that she was like really good at killing things, right? Because she killed the thing that's about killing. I mean, that's pretty cool.
But if it's death, it would be already dead, wouldn't it?
I don't think the gods are supposed to be dead. At least, not most of them. I don't know. Like, we have a statue of Sargonus in the house, but that's about it. My mom's not really into religion.
We understand. We find it fascinating, but cannot say that we have ever felt the urge to ask for the help of the gods. This is a very interesting celebration, but we've abandoned our friend, which is not something we are particularly pleased to have done. We should get back to the shop now.
But the show's still going on. Don't you want to see how it ends?
But our friend was relying on us, and now we are not there.
Well, didn't you tell my aunt that you were going to take care of me tonight?
Yes. We don't believe shows were a stipulation of that.
I don't know. I mean, she's a lot bigger than you are. I think that you should be kind of concerned that if I tell her that you made me sit all day in a boring shop and play with a dagger, she's not going to be happy with you.
We are not intimidated by Wenjazavis, and the red the red crystal just kind of like sparks once, and their arms crossed. Now we are determined to go back to the shop. We are quite insulted by that.
Great. So while you're having this argument with the adolescent Minotaur, the camera turns a little bit to where there is in a different section of the open air area of the low market, near the bonfire, but kind of around on the other side of it. Like the revelers from the Moon's Wake procession have gathered on one side of the bonfire, and they're watching the performance, which is sort of like backlit by the fire. But over on the other side, there's a totally different gathering of people in red cloaks with red hoods that have this symbol that is basically equilateral cross, but the each arm of it is like a Kree blade, like it's zigzaggy, and then it ends in a point. This black symbol printed on all of their cloaks. They boo indeed. They have is palanquin the word that I'm looking for? The large carrying sort of rack, like a
yes, I think so.
A palanquin with a enormous, smooth, round purple stone that some of the people in the crowd are carrying aloft, like they've toted it here from somewhere else. And there is one person who's also standing with his back to the fire and is just reading out a list of names. That's all he is doing in a loud, ominous-sounding voice. Just this name, that name, just proper names, not directly identifiable offhand, not the thing that's catching in the ear, but just a little ways away from the crowd stand Rikashi and Warren Arglebargle. Okay, so it's one of these guys that has the key.
Wrong voice.
Sorry. It's one of these guys that has the key we need. I'm terrible at doing voices. But I'm committed to it. I'm committed to the bit. I'm just noting for the record that I am really bad at everything mechanical about the bit. One of these guys has the key that we need.
Oh, great. Do you know which one?
The one in the red cloak with the black cross on it.
Well, I think that I can figure out which one it is based on the shoes. And he sort of crouches down, like tries to like get his face as close to the ground as possible. Kind of look at it's not a huge crowd. Look at the crowd, and try to like pick out which one he thinks it is on the basis of the shoes.
Rikashi's just standing over him with her arms crossed while he does this.
Eventually, he looks and like seems like he's got it, and he stands up and points it out to Rikashi. He points it, says like, okay, so you see the one where you can see some curly blonde hair poking out of the hood? Yeah, okay, so like 2 back from him? That guy.
Great. Where's that guy, like, located in the crowd?
Towards the back. Maybe not 100% of the back, but like not in the middle. He's sort of peripheral in his placement, away from the bonfire.
Okay, wait here. And I'm going to circle around the outside of the Scarlet Brotherhood crowd until I'm sort of near where that guy is. How far are they from like the surrounding buildings and like the streets and alleys that lead off?
They're not super close to surrounding buildings, but there's a bunch of stalls and like tents and kiosks and stuff in the low market, right? So they're kind of away from the brick and mortar infrastructure, but there's a lot of stuff around if you're looking for something to like be behind or adjacent to.
No, you know what? That's too much work. Rikashi's going to change faces to just like some human she spots nearby and sort of make her way towards the crowd and just body check someone from behind and immediately change faces And she's just like picking people around and like sort of like repeat the process in an attempt to start a fight. A large scale fight. A brawl.
Okay, so Rikashi is, through the judicious use of magical disguise, disrupting the festival of the circumambulation of the Purple Stone by creating a fist fight.
A Donnybrook.
Between the hooded members of the Scarlet Brotherhood in the city of Greyhawk. Yes, okay. That's a delightful plan. So it works. There is, one guy throws a punch and then he hits the guy behind him instead of hitting Rikashi, and then, it's on. There's just it descends into a melee. Not every single hooded figure is drawn into this, especially towards the bonfire. There's definitely it seems like to some degree these people are arranged by their self-control and maybe height in the organization, and so the people towards the front are definitely not into this turning into a street brawl. But towards the back, yeah, it's on. People are mixing it up and throwing bows and whatnot.
Yeah, Rikashi knows how to move through a fight. Mm-hmm. So once it picks up, she's just sort of sliding between the punches and kind of directing them at people until she can get right up to the guy in question and, body check him in a way that allows her to locate and, palm a key.
All right.
Your standard pickpocketing, but a little more violent.
Yeah. Okay. Let me think about this. Yeah. All right. Sure. Because he's wearing a cloak,
mm-hmm.
It's going to take her a couple of tries. Basically, the first time she gets his purse, and the purse just has coins.
Yeah, keeping that.
But then she goes back another time and she tries sort of the other side, and this time there is a key. Right. So basically it's hard to keep track of there's too many different possibilities here. Took her a couple of shots, but it's a melee. She's a shape-shifting, highly experienced thief. And this guy is not the sort of person that has a high resistance to this kind of thing. So I'm comfortable with the idea that she gets the key on the second try.
All right, I'm going to make my way back while escalating the violence as much as possible and resisting the urge to knife several members of the Scarlet Brotherhood as I go out.
Cool. Did you get it?
She dangles it just for a second and then pockets it.
Wow.
So, where to next?
Okay, well, that's the first one. We only need 2 more.
Womp womp.
Yeah, dead silence.
The fairy box needs 3 keys in order to open it. I gave that one to Perlick to hold for me when I went inside, and when I got out, he wouldn't give it back.
All right, lead the way.
So Warren takes Rikashi off towards to the west of the low market that leads towards the river quarter, and past the river quarter and beyond the city walls, you get to the docks. And it's in the docks that Warren has hidden the second key. Specifically, if you go to a certain dock in a certain section, there's he goes down and says, "Well, see, I put it in a bag inside a cage that's attached to one of the struts that the dock sits on, so we just have to wait for the tide to go down a little bit, for the water level to go down a little bit, and then we should be able to get down there and get it out of the cage."
She stares at him for a second and drops her false face and just keeps staring at him, and then starts handing him the stuff she just took off that guy and her jacket spare objects that she's holding and then just jumps into the water.
Yeah, so down there at the base of the pole that the dock is sitting on, indeed, there is a cage that's sort of a metal cage that's been like screwed into the wood. Rikashi has pretty decent strength, as I recall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's not going to be real hard for her to dismantle that and get at what's inside. That's pretty easy. And inside there is indeed another key. It looks the same, except that the first key that you got was silver, and this one is like brass.
This one is gold.
She comes up to the surface and sticks her head up. Is there anything else down here before I get out?
No, I don't have a lot of things, so...
All right. He climbs out of the water, drips, starts putting herself back together.
All right. Proceeding to the third key?
Sure.
All right, so that takes you back into the city limits and to the Golden Dragon Inn. The Golden Dragon Inn is one of the fancier tavern-type establishments in the city of Greyhawk, and one of the attractions of it is that it is decorated with all sorts of items and memorabilia from famous adventurers that have dwelled in the city of Greyhawk, and raids on famous dungeons and tombs and various other, somewhere between things that are somewhere between an archaeological site and a like a gold rush claim, right?
Hmm.
So this is like Planet Hollywood, City of Greyhawk.
Exactly like that. So there's like all these cases around. It's a very large bar, and all these cases around with like, various items. The death mask of Asarak, and there's a scepter hanging on the wall that says that it's part of the regalia of evil. There's a whole section, and this is where Warren is leading you. There's a whole section that says the Silver Metal Cairn. It's got a little placard that says the Silver Metal Cairn, and there's a box. It has this golden bowl that's an almost complete sphere. It's just open at the top, and then it's like a bowl. It's got a boot that's just perfectly silver. It's like silver, but it's cloth, and ends in like a tread. That's just a boot sitting there. And then another like a foot long rod. It's not super different from the shape and size of Rikashi's rod, although it doesn't have the same labeling on it, and has a bunch of these little gears on the outside, like wheels you could turn on the outside of it. But the labeling there says the Chartreuse Torch. So all of this in the box there, the little glass box, and Warren reaches, like he's like, keep a lookout, and he's like sort of feeling around the base of the box where there's some kind of a little hidden compartment, and he comes up with a golden key.
That's it?
That's the third key. We got them all now.
Hooray.
Meanwhile, as Warren has just produced the third key, into the bar walk Ashlar and Sen. Ashlar and Sen. I keep adding a extra vowel to your name, Josh. I apologize.
I like to assume that at this point he's still telling his story.
Yes, most definitely. So we do that every night of Aelin's Splendor, and of course the crowns cost a great deal of money. So it's a great honor to contribute to the cost of producing one of the crowns for each night of the festival. And I contributed the most this year for night 3, which is tonight. So that's why I wanted you to come with me to the festival tonight, so you could see how beautiful it is when we set that crown on fire and watch it melt down over the giant's head.
Yes.
So just that he has in fact been regaling Ashlar with the background of this somewhat arcane, relatively gruesome dwarven holiday that celebrates the murder of one of their many evil giant captors in a revolt that wasn't the revolt that actually won them their freedom, but was a precursor to it. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Go ahead.
Oh, basically just on a scale of 1 to 10, under how much duress is Ash in for being here?
So, you can decide for yourself, but one thing I will say is that Sen seems... It's not... Sen's been telling this story, but at the same time, he keeps interjecting about how, and there's this girl, Ashlar, such a beautiful, beautiful woman. Her name is Vistra Gertis. Oh, it just rolls off the tongue. And it becomes apparent to Ashlar, Sen really wants to impress this woman. And for whatever reason, he thinks that if he brings Ashlar to the festival tonight, she will be impressed by this. And he has shown Ashlar that he has a certain object of great arcane significance. The diamond locket of Hardby. But I'll tell you this, if you help me out tonight, if I can just get a kiss from Vistra Gertis, well, I'll happily let you have the diamond locket of Hardby. What use will it to be to me?
Okay, so like a 3.5.
Something like that.
Okay.
I presume he doesn't say that loud enough that everyone can hear.
No. Well, probably not. So you've walked in here ostensibly to get a drink before the festival starts at the Temple of Moradin. Anything that you want to establish doing in the Gold Dragon Inn?
So is he just kind of looking for me to hang out right now, or has he asked me to do anything in particular?
Well, if you could say that we're friends.
Okay.
It seems like he's a guy in search of a wingman here.
Okay, that's fine. Ashlar probably has some kind of like magical puzzle box that he picked up and that he's been tinkering with for a while. So I don't think that there's anything like innately super interesting to him here besides the like locket that he's been kind of baited out on. So I think he's basically kind of sitting there kind of tinkering with that in his hands while he waits for Sen to kind of, execute his plan or whatever.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, if anything like particularly notable, like he's not not watching or anything, so if anything like notable starts to happen somewhere else, like he'll pay attention to that, but for now he's just kind of, like fidgeting basically.
All right, so Sen continues to talk about the festival, he continues to talk about Vistra Gertis, but you're mostly just killing time. He knocks back a few before going off to the Temple of Moradin. The Temple of Moradin is in, I think it's called Burrowtown, if I remember correctly. It's this section of the city of Burrow Heights, section of the city of Greyhawk that is, it's not, so there is an Underdark in Greyhawk. Like there is an Undercity. It's not really the Undercity. It's the section of the above ground city that's below ground. It's like this area that's a bunch of sort of halfling burrows and dwarven holds and just spaces for the folks who live in Greyhawk who are most sort of culturally comfortable just slightly below the ground. Basically, it's a dugout series of hills or small cluster of hills. And that's where the Temple of Moradin is, because temples of Moradin need to be underground. So once you've spent some time at the Gold Dragon Inn, you head down to Burrow Heights and the Temple of Moradin, which is you walk down a very nicely crafted stone corridor in order to enter through a large set of doors and a vaulted stone space with complicated geometrical mosaics and a very strong hammer and anvil motif, obviously. some amount of fire in the form of forge fire worked into that here and there. There's something. They're not windows to the outside, but they're stained glass windows that must have something behind them that's glowing, so that there's light coming through them. So you can see sort of illuminated pictures of Moradin and the freeing of the dwarves and the desolation of the giants. And Sen takes a seat. He gets seats reserved for you right up at the front, in front of the pulpit, and he looks very pleased. I mean, it's sort of like looking at you and looking at the crowd and very excited about it. And the actual ritual involves bringing out. They have two like steel halves of a giant head. It's like a model of a giant human head. It's made out of steel. They've been superheated in a furnace somewhere back behind the altar. They come and sort of put them together. They interlock, so now you've got this big, super hot metal head. And then they put this giant pyrite crown on top of it. And during the service, you can watch the crown melting over the face of the effigy of the giant that is obviously contorted in agony.
That's fairly intense.
Yeah, it's fairly intense. Also, the entire service is in Dwarven. Ash does not speak Dwarven, right?
No.
Yeah, so it is boring. I mean, there's a spectacle, no doubt, but it is not accessible to lay. And everybody in here is a dwarf, by the way, to be clear about that. It's all dwarves. Ash is the only person in the crowd who is not a dwarf. And for that reason, he gets a lot, not impolite stares, maybe not impolite. Maybe they're impolite, but they're not unhappy stares. He's not like, people are like, what is he doing? They're very curious stares, like, oh, well, what's that? I say. So that's a lot of attention on Ash during the whole service.
I have been this person in a Catholic church. So.
The congregation stands up and it sits down. There's a book in front of, there's like a prayer book basically that they read from several times. Again, all in Dwarven. Let me remind you actually that one of the characteristics of Dwarven is that when it is spoken aloud, the hearer sees the text appear at the base of their vision. That works even if you don't speak Dwarven, although it doesn't help you read Dwarven. So not only...
That's so much worse!
Not only is it boring and off-putting, but there's this constant scroll at the base of Ash's vision in time to the words that he doesn't understand.
Oh my god, this is the worst.
So at the end of the service, after the whole thing is done, Sen is looking around, and like he's looking around, and he says a couple of things to people. He's mostly speaking in Dwarven, because everybody here speaks Dwarven except you, so he's mostly speaking in Dwarven to everybody. And he catches somebody else, like another male dwarf about his age, and asks a couple of questions and looks unhappy about the answers and says, "She wasn't here. She wasn't. I went to this. I paid so much gold for this. Ash, she wasn't even here. I can't believe it.
She wasn't here.
She wasn't here. She's at work."
Ash's like chest plate is just like glowing now. Just like his hair is starting to like heat lines are coming off of it a little bit. Like he's just kind of like clenching one hand and unclenching it again.
All right. Okay. Okay. This is bad, but we can still salvage the night. I can still introduce you. She'll see that I know you. I'll just slip it in casually that I paid so much gold for the festival tonight. Anyway, it's fine. We just have to go to her work. It's fine. And it's fine. It's just around the corner. So you go out the tunnel, sort of under the Borough Heights You can access a lot of the locations from above ground, but there's also sort of a network of tunnels between several of them. So you go turn left, you turn right, you go down a hallway, you go past a couple more doors, and there's a large round door, kind of a halfling sort of architectural style sort of move. It's not as much dwarven as it is halfling. And it's a rollicking space inside, and the sign over the door says Underhills. So inside is there are a number of people performing on a variety of small stages. Some of those
Ash's like has literally never understood the appeal here.
So Underhills wasn't my idea. I want that noted for the record. Is a strip club, maybe brothel, we don't know, that specifically caters to people who would be attracted to performers of shorter stature. So mostly their employees are halflings,
keeping the chimera
gnomes,
on brand here.
Dwarves. That's right.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so there are a lot of people shaking their stuff.
No, I need to roll back here. Is this a canonical location?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because
it's a canonical location because Kacey and Vin came up with it.
Okay, because I definitely played in a game where I was 12 where somebody had this exact bar, and so I was going to be really disturbed if they actually got this out of a book somewhere.
No, as we established, because I was looking at that, one of those old school Greyhawk books, they can't even come out and say that a brothel is a brothel in those books.
No, it was literally there was like a section of town that was only for the short races.
Oh my god!
And we went to that strip club there. I mean, 12-year-olds playing D&D, right?
12-year-olds playing D&D. Why? Oh, jeez. Never want to be younger again in my life.
You know that we're doing that now. That's why it came up.
Yeah, I do.
But ironically.
Exactly. So, one of these performers apparently is Vistra Gertis, not wearing a lot of clothing at the moment, but impressively dexterous on the pole in the middle of her small stage. Clearly,
Ash is gonna lean over, and I guess he has to lean way over to kind of whisper in his ear and say, suddenly the idea that if you spent a great deal of money you might impress her makes more sense.
Fair enough. So we've hit our second scene in this section of the plotline, which means it's time for someone else to enter. So over in the other side of the club, several tables away, sit Latchkey and Bjorkus. Why?
So they were, they don't know a ton of halflings. They know Balmo, and they know Father Wenta, and so their general experience with halflings is that they're a fairly, well-meaning, pious lot that like to drink a considerable amount. So when Bjorkus said he wanted to go to this place that his friends were telling him about called Underhills, they were like, oh, like a bar run by halflings. What could possibly go wrong?
That's the most wholesome place you've ever been.
This is the exact difference between Latchkey and Ash, because Latchkey doesn't get what it is, and Ash just doesn't get why anyone wants to go there.
So, and once they get there, like, Latchkey finds the whole thing sort of peculiar, but, like, they don't get social mores. Like, it doesn't occur to them at this point that this is actually a place that, a younger minotaur of unclear age, like, that they shouldn't be there. So they're like, oh, this is weird that, like, this minotaur has an interest in watching, other species undulate on poles, and not entirely clear why the clothes keep coming off. It's not really that hot in there.
And we've established that nobody knows how old the minotaurs are, so nobody knows to guard it.
Specifically, he's roughly the same height as a dwarf. What's the person on the door supposed to do?
So, like... they're sitting at the table and, Latchkey's not getting anything to drink or eat, but Bjorkus has kind of talked them into buying them something to drink and eat because they're hungry and, they're supposed to be watching him, and meaty things get sick and weak when they don't eat, and so they're kind of sitting there waiting for whatever Bjorkus wanted to order and some like fried nastiness to show up. And Latchkey is basically just trying to figure out like, what is going on here? Like, what is this place? Because it's clearly not a normal bar, but like, what is the purpose?
So while Bjorkus's attentions are somewhat engaged and Latchkey is trying to puzzle everything out, one of the performers who seems to have finished their set elsewhere in the bar and is not fully dressed again, but has like a dressing gown over herself. A gnome with red hair and a lot of glitter on her face comes up to Latchkey and says, "You have the gem of the Alexander in your head. Do you realize that?"
That we've, okay, so question.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking in Latchkey's various kind of fragmented memories when they were different items, they didn't necessarily have a sense of like, this is my name, but the names of the things that they were used for probably like showed up in certain contexts, right? That like now when you're reflecting back on it, you'd be like, oh, that was referencing to whatever I was. Is that a name that they've ever encountered in relation to one of themselves?
So I'm sorry, let me clarify. Do you think that Latchkey knows all the names of all the component parts?
I think that they would have tried to find out, or at least some of their personalities would have been interested in knowing that.
Mm-hmm.
So if it wasn't too difficult to parse out, it's something that they would have figured out. But if it's like a complicated trail, like they may not have ever really figured it out. It wasn't like the only thing they were trying to do.
I think this is not a name that Latchkey. I think Latchkey knows some, but not all, and that this is not a name that Latchkey recognizes. But the gnome woman delicately, politely, without touching, of course, just points to the red gem in Latchkey's head and says, "This one here that's definitely the gem of the Alexander." I'm sorry, I'm being rude. Lily Frugfessa. She introduces herself.
We are Latchkey, and this is Bjorkus, our ward for the night. And it takes them a minute, and it's a little bit stilted, but they extend their hand because that's a thing the meat people seem to do often.
Bjorkus is focused on somebody else, so didn't really pay attention to that introduction. But Lily gladly shakes hands. That seems to appreciate that Latchkey is new at this and tries to sort of walk them through it physically. Says, "This is so it's not often that my two professional lives collide, but I couldn't help but ask. It's a fascinating opportunity. The Alexander's been lost for centuries, and here it turns up in this place. That's odd."
We were not expecting to be here tonight. It's true.
So and she's sort of looking, are all of these artifact gems? And she's I mean, that's a question, but it's not so much a question directed at Latchkey as like a question of like, she's asking herself, like,
right.
And so she's sort of going around the crown of the head. I mean, Latchkey can interrupt her if you want, but otherwise she's just sort of like very intently inspecting like this.
I mean, I think they're used enough to being stared, and it's just not really anything that it occurred to them that people shouldn't do. So it doesn't really bother them particularly, as long as they're not like touching or grabbing or like obscuring their vision of what's going on around the room over much. So yeah, she can peer.
Good. So she's doing that for a while, and she's, "Oh, I think this is from the tome of Ibn Nizam." I didn't even know that was lost. I think there might... How do you feel about having someone write a paper on you? Is that gauche?
What? For what purpose?
So I'm working on getting my sage mantle. It takes a long time. It costs a lot of money. They don't give out scholarships at the Great College, so, working here. But you've got like 5 at least moderately famous artifacts built into your body here. Do you realize that?
We had some suspicion that something along those lines is what had occurred.
Well, look, I've got to go back on stage in a little bit. Can we make it like? Could we spend a little time? I could get my notebook and take some sketches and maybe do a little oral history and see if there's something publishable in this. This could be the ticket to am I actually finally getting to graduate.
If you would be able to tell us more about the artifacts you believed you have discovered in our crown, then we would be amenable to answering what questions we could about our experiences.
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm happy to tell you. I mean, so the Alexander, she just sort of starts to rattle out. The Alexander is the lost sword of Glemisgur, who felled the troll king Fargenflossen and rescued the Prince of Ulek during the siege of Havenhill. Glemisgur married the Prince of Ulek and was the great-grandmother of the current Prince Olenstad Korn. It's been lost for 237 years.
Interesting.
I bet the Prince of Ulek would love to know where it is. Not that I'm going to tell, of course. I'm just trying to say, it's an important thing, the Alexander.
So it seems, from what you have just said.
Well, so she goes back off to continue her shift, but with the hope that you'll get to talk more in the future. Meanwhile, the very burly halfling who was working the door when you came in has come over to Bjorkus, who apparently didn't get the memo about not touching, and has picked him up by the ear, basically, and is hauling him out towards the door.
So, once again, Latchkey finds themselves following after Bjorkus, going somewhere they were not anticipating, although they don't really stop the halfling from dragging him by the ear.
Very good. Well, so he gets tossed out onto...
Where are we in proportion to that as that's going on?
Wherever it's funniest if you are.
I would like to think that we're still by the door, and so we see them. We see the bouncer basically charging over with the Minotaur, and Latchkey haplessly trying to chase afterwards
with a black feather bow.
With a black feather
bow. If the bouncer gets up close before Bjorkus can actually get tossed, I'll lean over and just say, "Excuse me.
This guy broke the rules. He's getting thrown out."
Ash is going to kind of look over to Latchkey and see what he could get from them in about 3 seconds.
We owed a favor.
Ash will pull out a small but appropriate bribe for this request and just say, "Don't break anything."
Okay. So Ash bribes the bouncer. The bouncer bites the coin, puts it in his pocket, shoves Bjorkus out, but not in a way that's intended to break bone, and he falls out in the hallway, but doesn't slam into the far wall, as it looks like he probably could have done if he'd wanted to. Yeah. So now, Latchkey, you and the Adolescent Minotaur in your custody have just been thrown out of a strip club. What do you want to do next?
So I guess what are the things that are commonly done? Oh, wait, I guess so this is a child-like individual, and children like sitting on the lap of Saint Vivek Kepis, so they offer, would you like to go see Saint Vivek Kepis?
What? He seems really bewildered. He's a Minotaur, and Raoism is not common amongst the Minotaurs, so he doesn't actually know what Latchkey is talking about. It's like I said, like my mom's not that into religion. Sargonis is mostly like burning things and praying for other things to be struck by lightning. Who's Vivikepesk?
So they kind of launch into the whole explanation because, again, this is the personality that knows the most and is interested the most in history. So they actually have a pretty good understanding of the major religions, and so it goes into Saint Vivikepesk and the followings of Rao in as much as they relate to the story of Saint Vivikepesk, and that this is this bronze dragon, bronze or copper, I forgot.
Brass. This
is this brass dragon who helps people and relights their hearths and puts their children unconscious. And, it's slightly filtered because a lot of things they read, they sort of interpret in ways that humans might not. But ultimately that you can visit with them and wish for things for those who might need them. And in doing so, maybe also benefit yourself.
So there's like a dragon? I want to see a dragon. That sounds cool.
In a matter of speaking, it is more iconic than real, but certainly some of the costumes are quite impressive.
Yeah, all right. So heading out of Underhills and out of Borough Heights, you actually go back down to the Low Market, kind of the other side of the Low Market, the other side of where the bonfire, the Moongrave procession has broken up a while ago, as has the Purple Stone procession, the ceremonial reading of names by the Scarlet Brotherhood. But over on that side of the market, there is a large statue of a brass dragon, a large statue of Vivikepesk that was built by Zagig during the period where he was mayor of the city. And children of all ages are welcome to go and sit in its lap and whisper in its ear. And it's well known, at least among the adults in the city, that there is a speaking tube buried underneath the statue, and over behind a carefully placed shrub is where you can go and speak into it. Like parents will basically go there with their kids and put the kid on the statue, and one of them will go and hang out by the speaking tube so they can pretend to be Vivikepesk and speak through the statue.
Okay, so they'll, I guess, wait in line if there's a line. If
there would be, but by now it's pretty late at night, so actually there's no waiting.
Okay, so Latchkey shows the statue to Bjorkis and says, if you would like to sit on his lap and ask for support for your friends and neighbors and things that you wish for yourself, you may do so. We just have something we need to inspect over there by that bush, and we'll be back shortly.
So Bjorkis thinks that's kind of weird, but humans are weird. Human cities are weird. Goes over and climbs up on the lap of the statue and says, "Can you really hear me?" You can hear him pretty clearly through the pipes too.
Yes.
Whoa. Okay, so like, I can like ask you for things?
Yes.
Cool. Can you like burn something down with your fire? Like burn that house over there down.
That would not be very helpful.
Oh. Okay, like helping. Cool. Can you help please help my Aunt Wenja kill those guys so I can stop hanging out with this weird golem person.
I will do my best to honor your request, small minotaur.
Thank you. Don't get me wrong. Latchkey's been real cool about taking me to that club and everything. It just, I don't feel like they totally get the whole being made out of meat and bone instead of crystal thing.
That seems an astute observation.
Thank you. You're a really cool dragon. Oh, and I really want a sword.
Your request has been heard by Saint Vivek Kepesh.
Cool. Okay. And now that you've gone to the market, what do you propose to do next?
So I guess Latchkey will wander back and say, well, did you have a nice... This is like from observing parents and children do this thing. Like then the parents come back and act like they didn't just talk into the tunnel in the bush. And that apparently is part of this. Did you have a good conversation with the dragon?
Yeah. Saint Vivek Kepesh is pretty cool.
Ah, good. What would you like to see now? Perhaps the inside of your own home?
I'm pretty hungry. Can we get something to eat?
Sure. We know an inn that serves food that those who eat it seem to enjoy. So they're going to take him to the Western Wind.
Okay. So take him to the Western Wind. And as you walk in, Rikashi and Warren are on their way out. You almost bump into each other.
Latch.
Rikashi?
Who's your friend?
This is Dorcas. Who is your friend?
No one.
That sounds like...
Reminder, big face tattoo.
Right.
Oh, actually, when you almost bump into the face tattoo is glowing, and he seems very unhappy and like afflicted.
Oh, that's... Your friend seems quite uncomfortable.
Yeah, we were just leaving. Bye.
No. See you later.
Good luck saving Egg Day.
So you had to stop by the Western Wind because you had to go back to your place to get something to help you do the last part of the plan. In order to get access to this money, to the fairy box, you have to get back into Org's lower city office, which has been cordoned by the Watch for years, ever since the Syndicate got broken up, because it's just riddled with traps and they gave up on trying to fully decommission it. So it's just a building in the old city that essentially has the equivalent of police tape on it. And as I said, is full of traps. But there's a bunch of different secret ways in, and probably the best one that Rikashi knows is through the adjacent property, Zorbo's House of Fun, which is an old sort of children's entertainment complex that closed several years ago, like probably a decade ago at this point, but never got taken over or torn down or replaced by something else. And by going in through the Fun House and the House of Mirrors, you can gain access to the office.
Boy, I can't tell you how many times I dreamt of burning this place to the ground, but it's still fucking here.
It always gave me the creeps. It's like a big, crazy clown face that you have to walk through in order to enter. And it's like that, this is a pseudo-medieval setting, right? So it's like that extra creepy, like Venetian Renaissance type of clown. Not like the bozo, but like all these the face painting's more elaborate, and all the costumery is more garish and a lot more metallic colors rather than primary colors. Anyway.
All right, so I think we have to get to the back wall, which means we have to go through all this fucking nonsense. Don't touch anything. All of it's loud.
Warren really is, he was not a field person, right? He just did the books. So his dexterity is shockingly low for a gnome. But he's pretty good at making himself small and not touching things. It is, however, just, the building next door is truly booby-trapped. This building isn't booby-trapped. It's just full of things that will, like, make loud noises, fall, set off weird lights for some reason, like just all kinds of things going through here. It's just a maze of these opportunities to disturb the senses.
It's a Spirit of Halloween store.
There you go. So that's a little bit of a gauntlet to run. But at the back of the House of Mirrors, pressing on the correct mirror in the right way, it sort of pops out of place and you're able to swing it back. And that lets you into the building that contains Org's offices. So back in that section, it's a well-appointed, relatively well-appointed. It was never like his fancy business got done at the house, right? So this is like where he met mostly with the lower rung. So it wasn't super fancy, but he did a lot of business here. So it's, let's say, a nice desk and some chairs and a couple of rows of books that he definitely never read. And then there are a couple of other off of his office. There's a hallway and a couple of other smaller offices, including what used to be Warren's office. And that's where he leads you. And in his office, he goes up to a certain point on the wall. He puts his feet together and kind of measures out 5 steps, toe to heel, exactly towards the center of the room. And he's like really intricately, like he holds up the one of the keys and sort of holds it just right out in space. Nothing, just like it's an arbitrary point in space, right? Actually has his eyes closed, and he puts it just so, and then lets go, and it just stays where he left it, right? Just hangs there in the air. And then he does that for the other 2 keys, so they're all set up in a row next to each other.
Oh, shit. How long has this been here?
Before I started working for Org, it was here when I got the job. And then when he fired me, he did it so fast he didn't even take the keys away. So it's just been sitting here since then. He can't clear it out. You need all 3 keys in order to open it, and I had all the keys, so... He turns the keys in the locks, and a box materializes, like a small chest. Just sort of comes into being, where there wasn't anything visible or feelable before. And it pops open, and Warren looks in, and Rikashi looks in. It is empty.
Good news. You got a magic box.
How did this happen? You have to have all 3 keys in order to open the box. I had the keys. There were easily 500, 600 gold in here the last time I opened it. There's no other way to open this box. He's clearly having something of a breakdown. Like, every hope in his life was tied up in getting this money, and now it's just not there.
Rikashi, pick up the box, turn it upside down, shake it a bit. What's under the box?
Like what's underneath the box?
Firstly, what was under where the box was, and then what's on the underside of the box?
It was sitting on the floor.
Mm.
So turning it over, it's not like a false bottom. There's no hidden compartments. You turn the box all the way over, and it says, "Dear Org, I owe you, Zarian."
Huh. She turns it around, shows it to him.
I don't know how she did it, but she did it.
Yeah, she's fucking sneaky as shit.
You got that right.
I mean, so am I. We all are. It's sort of job. But, yeah.
Look, I'm really sorry. I made you run around all night on the holiday. I don't have something to cut you in on, but the box is worth something. You can keep that.
Yeah, I think I know a guy who will buy this box from you.
Well, like I said, I owe you for it, and you kept up your end of the bargain. So, I pay my debts.
Yeah, let's go see if we can sell this box.
All right, so you're going to go see about selling the box, which means going back to Ash's shop.
Hmm.
I think when you arrive at Ash's shop, we are already in the middle of a situation where Ash and Sen are in leg and wrist irons. There's a bunch of people from the Night Watch there. And also Latchkey and Bjorkus are there. And Latchkey is arguing with the head of the watch about why Ash should be allowed to go free.
Rikashi immediately puts on her other face.
Listen, Crystal, whatever person. They were at an unauthorized cult meeting. They got to spend at least a night in jail. It's not my choice.
Well, they didn't know it was a cult meeting when they got there. That's why they were there. You can't. Oh, they've gone pink by now. By the way, and their pink is very good at affecting human mannerisms. So they have that I'm too important for this, and I'm feeling very impatient about the fact that we're still having this conversation kind of look. Their arms are crossed. They kind of have their weight on one leg, and one foot is tapping. And they say, "You can't possibly believe that my esteemed colleague and the owner of this illustrious shop would be at such a place knowingly. Certainly this is clearly a misunderstanding, and this is in the middle of a celebration, no less. This seems ridiculous."
Ash waves when they mention him. I guess with both hands if he's manacled.
Rikashi, seeing all this going on, puts on the face of the Lord Mayor's personal assistant. What the hell is going on here?
Ma'am, we arrested several people when we were breaking up the underground meeting of the Cult of Ayuz tonight, and these two were, they're the only ones where the arrest took.
Which, as I have said multiple times, is further proof that they're not part of the cult.
Look, the Lord Mayor has this box, right? This box, she holds up the box. And this box is jammed. Lord Mayor needs this box opened, and apparently this guy here is the guy who knows how to open a box like this.
Ash waves with both manacled hands again.
So, you want to get him later, that's fine, but for tonight, I need these idiots.
Sen, the whole time, has just been muttering to himself, I can't believe she's a follower of fucking Ayaz. I mean, if it was Tamat, fine. I can live with that. Lolth even, maybe. I could deal with that. I know a couple of okay dro. But Ayaz...
How many conversations did you have with this woman exactly?
Maybe 2.5.
And it never came up?
No, it never came up. Do you open the box? Or do you take the box? I mean, are you playing along with the box gag?
Oh, I am absolutely playing along with the box gag.
Okay, so Rikashi hands the box to Ash, and Ash is like, well, this is a box that has 3 keys in it. A very cursory turning of the 3 keys makes the box open. It's not hard for him to do it. Your choice about how much of a show he makes of doing it.
There's definitely, I definitely put all the pyrotechnics I can into it. I don't think Ash can really make a quizzical face, but he's going to do his damnedest to try.
Some notable hms.
Yep.
Couple ahas.
Also, he's going to make a big show of, how difficult this is being, shackled and everything. Just is playing up the drama as much as possible.
Look, we take the irons off. You're taking responsibility, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Well, all right. Sneedfest. I want to give us some ale. He unlocks the manacles, and he and his boys head off to where the ale's cheap.
Ta-da!
Ash stands up. Big sigh of energy off the center plate. I do have to thank you. That was an awkward situation. He's going to kind of kick Sem a little bit. Not like really hard, just, enough.
He's so aggrieved in his heart. He's so wounded in his soul that he seems completely indifferent to any injury of the body. This is a hard loss for him. He's definitely reeling from it. It's basically the worst one. And you know what? I think she took that necklace too. So we'll cut from there to imagine a montage with some nice Need Fest theme music in the background, right? And we're seeing the underground economy of Greyhawk in little clips as the necklace changes hands from one person to another person. Sometimes it's a furry hand, sometimes it's a scaly hand, sometimes it's a hand with only 3 fingers, and then eventually it's sitting in a stall somewhere in the greater environs of the city, and the hand that picks it up is dark black in coloration, and picks it up and looks at it in the light, and Darbin Tolric is looking at the necklace and then pays some coins to the person who's selling it and puts them in his pocket and walks away. Following that, we have another sort of montage. This is sort of a flashback montage in order to make it work, but in which a brigand steals from a female halfling not just a few coins, but also this little carving of a wooden dog. And then that passes from hand to hand to hand until it ends up in a shop in the nation of Jof, where a young boy is trying to make a little money by selling it, and the person who chooses to buy it from him is Sarsimian, because the young boy reminds him of his brother. And then finally, far away, back in the region of Hind, all of the Barley Wain clan have gathered around the Needfast table, eating the roast beast. It's a very happy, picturesque, completely an image of the holiday, all about family and good feeling, and totally devoid of any sort of rampant criminality or inappropriate nudity or any of the other themes witnessed in tonight's game. And I think that's the image that we will end on.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.